Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. The words landed like glass shattering on concrete, sharp and cold and impossible to put back together. "You're cheating again," he said, his voice flat, emotionless, as if stating a fact rather than accusing me of something that felt utterly absurd. He stood across from me in the kitchen, arms crossed tightly, his face unreadable except for the icy glare that froze me in place. "What?" I asked, barely a whisper. My fingers clutched the edge of the countertop, knuckles white, as I tried to process what he'd just said. "How can you even think that?" He sighed loudly, a bitter sound that twisted the knife of betrayal deeper into my chest. "Don't play dumb. I've seen the messages. Someone sent me screenshots." My heart hammered wildly, panic fluttering against my ribs. I searched his eyes desperately, looking for some flicker of doubt, some sign he wasn't entirely convinced of my guilt. But there was nothing, only emptiness. Only certainty. "I haven't done anything," I said, voice trembling, tears pooling behind my eyes. "Why would someone even say that about me? You know me. You know I wouldn't." But he shook his head, frustration painting harsh lines across his forehead. "That's just it. I don't know you. Not anymore. Every time we've been through this, you promise it's nothing, you cry, you plead, and every time." I cut him off, anger mixing with desperation. "Every single time it's been proven false. Every time it was lies told by someone who just wanted to hurt us or hurt me. Why do you keep choosing to believe other people over me?" "Because it's always believable," he snapped, voice rising sharply. "Maybe it's because deep down I know you're capable of it." His words sliced through the air, razor sharp. Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. My chest tightened, as though he had physically punched me, stealing all the breath from my lungs. "How many more times do I have to defend myself?" I whispered, voice breaking. Tears blurred my vision, anger replaced by a bone-deep sadness. "How many more ways do I have to prove that I'm telling the truth before you trust me?" He stared at me, eyes narrowed, cold and distant. "Trust?" he scoffed bitterly. "Trust died a long time ago. You killed it piece by piece." His words broke something inside me. For the first time, I didn't plead, didn't fight, didn't try to convince him of my innocence. I just stood there, silent, feeling smaller and more alone than ever before. Because I saw clearly then. He had already decided. The truth didn't matter anymore. "I haven't killed anything," I finally said softly, forcing the words past the lump in my throat. "But you've killed me every time you believed their lies over my truth." He didn't reply, just turned away sharply, leaving me standing alone in a kitchen that had never felt so empty. I heard the front door slam, a cruel echo reverberating through my bones. My knees buckled and I sank slowly to the floor, gasping, tears finally spilling unchecked. This wasn't the first time. I knew how it would play out. Friends would whisper, family would shake their heads, and eventually someone would prove I'd done nothing wrong. But by then the damage would be permanent. Another layer of scars hidden beneath careful smiles. Another piece of myself I'd lose, slowly disappearing behind each false accusation he chose to believe. Sitting there, shattered again, I finally understood something painful and undeniable. It didn't matter if I was innocent. To him, I would always be guilty until proven otherwise. And even then, I'd still be the one paying the price. This realization wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, like a candle being blown out in the dark, leaving behind nothing but smoke and silence. And the haunting knowledge that this time I had truly broken. The first time he accused me, I laughed because I thought he was joking. We'd been dating 6 months, still in that dizzying honeymoon stage, where every touch felt electric and every word whispered felt like a promise. He cornered me one afternoon in our favorite cafe, his expression strange, an uncomfortable blend of anger and hurt. "I heard some things," he said quietly, eyes narrowed, watching me intently. I smiled, playful, sipping my coffee. "Things? You and some guy from your office," he said, tone strained. "People have been talking." I'd laughed, setting down my cup, amused and bewildered. "Seriously? People at work talk about everything. It's probably because we worked late together once." "It's nothing." He didn't smile back. His face remained tight, a hint of suspicion lingering. "Then why does it sound true?" My laughter died instantly, replaced by confusion. Because gossip is like that. I can't control what other people say. I can only tell you what's real. He let it go that day, but something changed between us. A small shift I tried to ignore. It was the first tiny crack in what I thought was perfect trust. The second time hurt more. We were at a party with mutual friends. Someone whispered something to him, glancing my way. I saw his eyes darken. Later, he confronted me in the hallway, voice low but full of accusation. "Do you really think I wouldn't notice?" He hissed quietly, careful that no one overheard. "Everyone here knows you've been flirting behind my back." I felt the sting of tears immediately, shocked and embarrassed. "Who said that? You know me."
I'm friendly.
"That doesn't mean I flirt." His face hardened. "Friendly or flirting? Because people keep confusing the two." "I'm not responsible for their confusion," I whispered, pleading. "Please don't do this again."
I'm faithful.
"I love you." He turned away without answering, leaving me frozen, heart aching in humiliation. That night, he didn't speak to me on the way home. His silence, louder than shouting could ever be, kept happening. Different places, different accusations. A text he found suspicious, a conversation someone misinterpreted, a story twisted to paint me as someone I wasn't. Each time he believed them faster, questioned me harder, forgave me slower. Each accusation stripped away a layer of trust until there was nothing left but raw vulnerability and constant doubt. Even worse, our circle of friends changed. People who'd once smiled warmly now watched me with narrowed eyes and hushed whispers. I heard fragments when I entered a room. "Can't believe she'd do that." Or "She seems like the type." Each phrase a dagger slicing away pieces of my dignity. My family noticed too. Conversations turned careful, polite questions masking judgment. "Everything okay at home?" they'd ask gently, eyes searching my face for secrets I wasn't hiding. My mother finally confronted me, voice trembling slightly. "Is there something you need to tell me? People are worried." "Mom, it's not true," I whispered, feeling crushed under the weight of her doubt. "I swear." "Why won't anyone believe me?" She reached out, hand touching my shoulder gently, sadness in her eyes. "Sometimes, sweetheart, when enough people whisper, it's hard not to wonder." Her words felt like betrayal, worse even than his suspicion, because she was supposed to know me best. Each time an accusation was disproven, no apologies came. People simply moved on, forgetting the damage, ignoring the scars left behind. They forgot quickly, but I remembered. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw fragments of a woman who used to laugh freely, who trusted easily, who felt safe. But with every new suspicion, I shrank a little smaller, spoke a little softer, until I barely recognized myself anymore. Standing alone in our empty house after his latest accusation, I realized clearly for the first time what this endless cycle had done. It wasn't just about being falsely accused. It was about the slow destruction of my identity, my confidence, my entire self-worth. Every false accusation had quietly chipped away at the foundation of who I was, until there was almost nothing left to defend. But even as I recognized this, I still found myself desperate for his belief, for anyone's belief. Because being falsely accused again wasn't just exhausting. It was destroying me piece by piece, and I didn't know how many pieces I had left. I spent the next day pacing through the house, desperate for something tangible, something that could finally clear my name once and for all. My mind raced, replaying the fragments of the argument, the coldness in his voice, and those haunting words. Trust died a long time ago. But what evidence could I possibly give someone who'd already decided I was guilty? I tried anyway, because the only alternative was surrender, and I wasn't ready to give up on myself yet. I pulled up phone records, bank statements, work emails, anything that proved my innocence, anything that showed exactly where I'd been. My fingers trembled as I printed every document I found, carefully highlighting dates, times, locations. Each piece of paper felt like a tiny shield, something I could hide behind, something I hoped could finally protect me from his accusations. When he came home that evening, I was waiting. The stack of evidence sat neatly organized on the coffee table, a silent plea for him to finally see me clearly, to finally trust me. "Please," I said softly, gesturing toward the pile. "Look at these. They prove it. Everything is here. I have nothing to hide." He glanced at the papers and sighed, irritated. His shoulders tensed as though even being asked to consider the truth was a burden. Enough, he snapped. Do you really think I want to waste my time with this again? Waste your time. My voice trembled, disbelief bleeding into desperation. This is our life. It's my reputation, it's my heart. Just look at them, just once. He scoffed, waving his hand dismissively. And how many times have you proved yourself before? Papers don't mean anything when you keep giving people reasons to talk. My stomach tightened painfully. What reasons? Being friendly? Working late sometimes? Having male coworkers? Since when are those things crimes? He shook his head bitterly. It's not about crimes, it's about trust. About how many times I've had to wonder if you're lying again. How many nights I've spent doubting everything you've ever told me. My throat closed tightly, emotion choking my words. But every single time it turned out I wasn't lying. Every single time. Why won't you remember that? His eyes narrowed, voice dangerously calm. Because if it keeps happening, then maybe it's not them. Maybe it's you. His words were ice, a painful blow that stole my breath. He wasn't just ignoring the evidence. He was ignoring me, who I was, everything I'd ever been to him. Something in me broke, releasing anger in a rush. Maybe it's easier for you to believe I'm guilty, I whispered sharply. Maybe it makes it simpler to treat me like this, to keep me small and silent. He raised an eyebrow, stepping closer. Or maybe you're just desperate because I finally see through your lies. Then see this. I screamed, sweeping the papers off the table. They fluttered chaotically, scattering across the floor. A messy carpet of ignored truth. That's my innocence lying there. And you won't even look at it. He didn't flinch. He stared down at the papers, expression hardened by disbelief, indifferent to the wreckage between us. Your innocence, he laughed bitterly. You haven't been innocent for a long time. I took a shaky breath, tears hot in my eyes blurring his cold face. You know what's worse than being falsely accused? My voice cracked, raw with anguish. It's the realization that you've never even tried to believe me. Not once. He met my eyes, unflinching, unmoved. Maybe I stopped believing you because you stopped deserving to be believed. With those words he turned and walked away, leaving me alone, surrounded by evidence that meant nothing, truths that held no value, facts that couldn't break through the wall of his suspicion. I sank to the floor, numb. The scattered papers around me were the fragments of the person I'd been trying so desperately to prove myself to be. But truth couldn't help me, not with someone who had chosen to close their eyes. The real truth, the painful truth, was simple. It didn't matter how many times I proved myself innocent, because to him I would always be guilty. I waited 2 days before deciding to confront her. 2 days trapped inside my own thoughts, haunted by sleepless nights and endless pacing through empty rooms. Every second was torture. Each silent moment filled with whispers I couldn't quiet, questions I couldn't answer. She worked at a small boutique downtown. I'd only been there once or twice, never staying long enough to be noticed, always cautious not to stir trouble. But this time I walked in boldly, my steps fueled by anger, desperation, and the lingering fragments of my broken pride. The bell over the shop door rang softly as I entered, announcing my arrival. She looked up from folding sweaters, her expression shifting quickly from surprise to a smug, victorious smile. Well, this is unexpected, she purred, slowly walking toward me. Didn't think you had it in you. You lied, I said, my voice shaking slightly despite my attempt at firmness. Why would you do that? Why ruin my life? She tilted her head innocently, her eyes glittering with amusement. Ruin your life? She echoed softly. Oh honey, I didn't ruin anything. I just sped up what was already happening. I clenched my fists, fighting to stay calm. None of it was true. I never cheated. Never betrayed anyone. Why make up lies to destroy someone you barely know? She laughed quietly, the sound cruel and empty. Because you were in my way, she replied smoothly. And honestly, it wasn't even hard. He trusts me more than he ever trusted you. Pain twisted sharply in my chest. He trusted you because you lied convincingly. You made him doubt me. But why choose me? She stepped closer, her voice dropping into a whisper, a slow poison dripping into my ears. Because I could see right through you from the start. You thought you had everything, the perfect relationship, the perfect trust. You needed a reality check. You needed to understand you weren't special. Why would you do that to another person? My voice cracked, emotion bleeding through despite my best efforts. I never did anything to you. Her eyes flashed briefly with something darker, rawer, something almost like jealousy. Exactly. You didn't have to. Your mere existence was enough. The way he used to look at you, the way he spoke about you. I couldn't stand it. So you wanted what I had. I breathed, realization settling heavily. That's why you tore me down. Because you were jealous. She smiled slowly, cruelly. Not jealous. Just tired of seeing someone like you get everything you didn't deserve. And besides, it worked, didn't it? He chose to believe me without hesitation. What does that say about you? Her words sliced deep, reopening every wound he'd inflicted with his constant doubts. I stared at her, feeling numbness spread through my chest. It says he never loved me enough to trust me, I finally whispered. She shrugged lightly, indifferent to my pain. Maybe. Or maybe you were just too blind to see it. He never fully trusted you, did he? There was always room for doubt. I just used it to my advantage. I shook my head slowly, fighting the urge to scream, to cry, to break down right there in front of her. You have no idea what you've done. The damage, the pain, you've destroyed more than just my relationship. You've destroyed me. She raised an eyebrow, amused. I didn't destroy anything. You hadn't already weakened yourself. You were always so fragile, so easy to break. I barely had to try. Her words cut through me, sharp and precise, but instead of anger, something different rose within me, clarity. A bitter, painful clarity. You think you've won, I said quietly, my voice suddenly steady, clearer than it had been in days. But all you've done is show me the truth. He wasn't the only one who failed me. I failed myself by letting him doubt me over and over again. She laughed softly, stepping back to return to folding sweaters as if our conversation meant nothing. You can believe whatever makes you feel better. But the truth is simple. I won and you lost. I stood there watching her calmly continue her day, unaffected, unbothered. My presence, my pain, none of it mattered to her. To her, I was nothing but an obstacle she'd successfully removed. As I turned to leave, the door's soft bell rang again, sounding distant and hollow. I stepped out onto the street, feeling colder, emptier, and more alone than ever before. Because the worst part wasn't that she'd lied. The worst part was knowing that the lie was always stronger than my truth, because he'd chosen it. She hadn't just accused me falsely, she'd proven that I'd never really been trusted, that I'd never truly been loved. And standing there, under the pale, indifferent sky, I finally understood the heartbreaking truth. Sometimes the deepest betrayal doesn't come from the liar. It comes from the one who chose to believe them. In the days after confronting her, I began to realize that it wasn't just my relationship that had been shattered. My entire life had unraveled around me, quietly but completely. The walls of my own home felt oppressive, closing in slowly, leaving me trapped with nothing but the echoes of their cruel words and my desperate denials. I avoided mirrors because each reflection reminded me of what I'd become. Someone I didn't recognize, exhausted, anxious, defeated. Each day blurred into the next, and my phone remained painfully silent, a bitter reminder that even those closest to me had chosen sides, and I wasn't on theirs. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by endless nights staring at the ceiling, replaying every painful moment, every accusation, every betrayal. The constant whispering in my head never quieted. You deserve this. They'll never believe you. You're not worth believing. I tried reaching out once, texting my best friend. A short, vulnerable message filled with fear and pleading for support. Can we talk? I really need someone right now. Hours passed. The reply was short and cold. I'm sorry, but I can't keep doing this with you. You always say it's not true, but drama follows you. Maybe take some time to think about why. Her words crushed me, draining what little strength I had left. It was proof, yet again, that my truth didn't matter. Only the whispers, the rumors, and the easy comfort of believing the worst. Soon I stopped reaching out altogether. Isolation became easier than facing another rejection, another accusation disguised as advice. I moved quietly through my days, barely speaking, afraid that my voice itself had somehow become evidence against me. Even simple tasks became overwhelming. I stopped cooking, stopped cleaning, stopped caring. The dishes piled up in the sink, unopened mail stacked by the front door. The shadows in the corners of my home deepened as if mirroring the darkness I felt inside. And through it all, he continued as though nothing had changed, because for him nothing had. He worked, laughed, went out with friends. He was comfortable, unbothered. His doubts and accusations hadn't cost him anything. The price was mine alone. I wanted to leave desperately. But where would I go? Who would take me in? This woman accused, rejected, labeled as trouble. My family had stopped calling, my friends had turned away. I had become invisible, a ghost haunting my own life. Every avenue I considered seemed blocked, every escape impossible. Every night, as darkness fell, I found myself standing by the window, staring blankly at nothing, contemplating the unbearable truth. I had no place in this world. No one waiting for me, no one believing in me, no one who cared if I stayed or disappeared. One evening I caught sight of my reflection in the glass, a faint, distorted figure, pale and trembling. My eyes stared back hollow as though all the fight, the passion, the hope had drained out, leaving nothing but emptiness behind. How long could someone live this way, utterly alone, unheard, unseen? A quiet voice inside whispered an answer I was too afraid to confront. I pushed it away, desperate to hold on to something, anything, some tiny fragment of hope or dignity. But then his voice came from behind me, casual, indifferent. Still feeling sorry for yourself? I turned slowly, meeting his gaze, seeing clearly for the first time the complete lack of compassion there. He looked at me as though I was nothing more than a burden, a nuisance that refused to leave. Why? I asked quietly, my voice hoarse from disuse, from endless nights of silent tears. Why won't you even try to believe me? He sighed, deeply irritated. Because I'm done pretending. You always play the victim. Everything's always someone else's fault. Aren't you tired of your own lies yet? The cruelty of his words cut deep, shredding what little self-respect remained. You're the one choosing to believe lies, I whispered weakly, knowing he wouldn't care, wouldn't listen. He shrugged, dismissing me completely. If you don't like it, you know where the door is. With that he walked away, leaving me standing there alone, more trapped than ever, because the door wasn't an escape. Not anymore. Leaving meant walking into a world where no one believed me, where my voice didn't matter, where every gaze carried judgment. Staying meant endless silence, endless pain, endless accusations. There was no way out. Not from this home, not from the lies, not from the darkness swallowing me whole. In that hopeless moment, staring out at the empty night, I finally understood the chilling truth. No one was coming to save me. No one was going to fight for me. Because to everyone else I was already gone. The silence in our home had become deafening, filling every room, suffocating me slowly from within. Days blurred into nights, nights blurred into days, all spent drowning quietly in my own helplessness. But deep down, a stubborn fragment of hope remained. Small, flickering, fragile, yet determined not to extinguish entirely. It whispered one desperate promise. Maybe if he could hear me clearly one last time, he might finally believe. That evening I prepared carefully. I chose my words, practicing softly in my head, trying to make my message undeniable, impossible to dismiss. My voice trembled as I approached him, where he sat calmly reading something on his phone, his expression indifferent, entirely oblivious to my turmoil. Can we talk? I asked quietly, my words barely audible even to myself. He glanced up, irritation flickering across his face. About what? More excuses? More lies? No, I breathed, swallowing back the lump in my throat. About the truth. Just once. One final time, please. He sighed, deliberately setting down his phone, as if dealing with me was an enormous inconvenience.
Fine.
Make it quick. I took a slow, shaking breath, carefully composing myself, desperate not to lose control, not to fall apart before I could finish. I've never been unfaithful. Not now, not ever. Every time you've accused me, every single time, it's been lies. Please listen. I've loved you deeply. You know I have. So why is it easier for you to believe the worst? He stared at me blankly, unimpressed. Because your tears don't move me anymore. I've heard this before. I've heard all of it. Then why won't you believe it? I whispered fiercely, fighting tears that blurred his cold, unmoved face. I've shown you everything. Proof after proof. Why do you choose to believe someone else's lies over my truth? Because, he said sharply, eyes narrowing dangerously, your truth always sounds exactly like your lies. Always perfectly convenient. Always the victim. His words tore through me, sharper than ever. But this time I forced myself to keep standing. That's not fair, I said softly. You don't even try to understand. You don't want to understand. You've decided I'm guilty, and you punish me every day for things I've never done. He leaned forward, eyes dark with accusation. Maybe the punishment you feel isn't from me. Maybe it's your own guilt finally catching up to you. Frustration surged through me, mixed with despair. How can you punish someone who's innocent and still believe you're justified? You've isolated me from everyone, friends, family. You've convinced them I'm worthless. You're killing me slowly and you don't even care. His face remained unyielding, unaffected by my desperation. If you're so unhappy, you know exactly what you can do. His indifference was crushing, but I pressed on, determined to break through. Can't you see? It's not about unhappiness. It's about respect, trust, things I deserve, things you promised when you said you loved me. He stood up suddenly, towering over me, his voice cold. Respect and trust? Those died when you betrayed me. But I never betrayed you. My voice broke, tears finally spilling unchecked down my face. Why can't you hear that? Why is your belief in my guilt stronger than any love you ever claimed? He glared at me, disgust clear in every harsh line of his face. Because I stopped believing in you long ago. Every plea, every tear. You lost your power over me. Your lies became your truth, and frankly, I've had enough. His words hollowed me, leaving nothing behind but emptiness. The truth was clear, devastatingly simple. He wasn't going to listen. Not now, not ever. My final plea had failed, just as every other had. Standing there, feeling broken beyond repair, I realized there was no bridge left to rebuild. No hope left to hold on to. My voice, my truth, my heart. None of it mattered to him. The silence returned, deeper than before, and he picked up his phone again, casually scrolling as if I'd said nothing at all, as if my presence had never mattered. And in that moment a quiet resolve took hold. A terrifying clarity. Words would never reach him again. My truth was worthless to him, invisible, meaningless. To make him finally understand, I would have to do something he couldn't ignore, something undeniable. Something so brutally clear it would haunt him forever. I turned away silently, walking slowly back to the darkened bedroom, heart thundering not with fear, but with the grim determination born from complete hopelessness. Because I knew exactly what I had to do, and it had nothing to do with pleading anymore. The decision settled in my heart with a quiet, chilling certainty. It wasn't impulsive. It wasn't a sudden explosion of rage or grief. It was a slow, steady realization that took root in the darkest corner of my mind, whispering quietly but insistently, if words won't convince him, maybe actions will. I spent hours alone, contemplating the weight of what I was about to do. It wasn't revenge I sought. Revenge would mean hurting someone else. No, I wasn't interested in hurting him or the woman who had lied so cruelly. They'd already inflicted enough pain. I just needed him to finally see me. Truly see the depth of the wounds he'd left behind, the damage each false accusation had carved into my soul. If he wouldn't listen, he'd have to witness. If my pain couldn't reach him through words, perhaps it would through something so raw, so undeniable, that he could never look away again. The day arrived slowly. The hours dragged heavily, the house silent, oppressive. My hands shook as I dressed carefully, deliberately choosing clothing that was simple, pure white, symbolic of innocence, of clarity, of everything I'd lost. In the mirror, my reflection stared back, pale and determined, eyes hollow yet strangely resolute. I called them both, him and her, the woman whose lies had destroyed everything. The words felt foreign, detached, as though someone else were speaking through my lips. I need to speak to you both tonight. Please just come. It's important. He was skeptical, irritated. Why? Another attempt at drama? Another lie. Just one last conversation, I said calmly, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Then I'll leave you both alone forever. He hesitated, then agreed. Perhaps from curiosity, perhaps from the desire to mock me one last time. I didn't care which. Evening arrived quietly, shadows filling every corner as they entered the room. He walked in first, expression annoyed, dismissive. She followed behind him, confident, arrogant, a cruel smirk already forming on her lips. Seeing them together was agonizing, but it strengthened my resolve, reaffirmed the necessity of my choice. "What is this about?" he asked sharply, impatient. "I wanted to face you both together to tell you clearly what your actions have done," I began softly, meeting their cold, indifferent stares. "Your lies destroyed me, and your accusations left scars that words alone could never heal." She laughed quietly, rolling her eyes. "We've heard all this. It's getting old." I ignored her, keeping my voice steady, eyes fixed directly on him. "You never believed my innocence, no matter how much proof I offered. Every accusation tore a piece from my soul. But tonight, you'll finally see the truth you've ignored." He sighed, annoyed. "Can we just end this? You said you'd leave us alone after." My heart pounded, breath shallow, adrenaline sharpening everything around me. "I will," I whispered, my hand trembling as I reached into the small drawer beside me, fingers wrapping around cold metal. "But first, I need you to see exactly what your accusations have done." Slowly, I withdrew the knife, the blade catching the dim lamplight. Both their faces changed instantly, from smugness to confusion, then slowly to alarm. "What are you doing?" he demanded sharply, stepping back instinctively. His eyes darted between my face and the blade, disbelief and fear flickering across his features. "Showing you the pain you refuse to acknowledge," I whispered, voice shaking now, tears streaming silently down my cheeks. "I told you every accusation broke me. But words were never enough, were they?" Her eyes widened, suddenly terrified. "Put it down," she stammered, all arrogance gone, replaced by genuine fear. I looked at her, steady, unmoved. "Now you're scared? Now you understand what it feels like." He reached out slowly, voice trembling with sudden panic. "Listen, just stop. We believe you now, okay? You don't have to do this." I shook my head slowly, tears falling freely now, blurring their frightened faces. "It's too late. You had countless chances to believe me, countless opportunities to choose trust over cruelty." They stood frozen, afraid to move, their faces reflecting the horror of understanding too late what their cruelty had driven me to. I lifted the knife gently, placing it against my chest, feeling the cold metal through the thin fabric. My voice trembled softly, raw with emotion. "You accused me of stabbing you both in the back. But the truth is, the only person I ever harmed was myself, by loving you, by trusting you, by hoping you'd someday choose me." His face contorted with horror, finally understanding the depth of my pain, of his betrayal. "Wait, please don't." But it was already too late. With a final trembling breath, I pressed inward, not deeply enough to take my life, but deep enough to break the surface, deep enough to spill the blood he refused to see had already been drawn by his false accusations. Pain flooded through me instantly, sharp, undeniable, pure. I staggered backward, knees buckling, vision blurring as the knife slipped from my fingers, clattering onto the floor. They screamed, voices filled with genuine terror, rushing toward me as I sank to my knees, trembling. Through fading consciousness, I saw his face, his true self finally exposed, raw with panic, regret, and horror. I whispered weakly, blood staining my trembling fingertips, "Do you see now? Do you finally understand?" And as darkness gently overtook me, I knew for the first time that they both did. The world felt blurred and surreal, colors fading, sounds muffled as though wrapped in layers of cotton. I was vaguely aware of the pain radiating through my chest, sharp yet strangely distant, as if it belonged to someone else entirely. Blood stained my shirt, warm and vivid, unmistakable proof of the truth I'd been desperate for them to finally see. Their panicked voices reached me slowly, as though traveling through deep water. "Oh my God, what have you done?" His voice cracked, shaking, filled with shock and a rising desperation. She knelt beside me, eyes wide with horror. Her arrogance had vanished completely, replaced by genuine terror and disbelief. "I didn't think. You weren't supposed to. This wasn't supposed to happen." My vision swam, black spots dancing at the edges. Weakness tugged at my limbs, and yet somehow, despite the pain, despite the danger, there was a strange peace, a calm certainty that finally, undeniably, my truth was visible. He leaned over me, face pale, eyes wide with fear. "Stay with me," he pleaded urgently, panic edging every word.
I'm sorry. Okay.
I believe you. I believe you now. I looked up at him, struggling to focus, my breathing shallow, each breath feeling impossibly heavy. Why now? I whispered weakly, my voice barely audible. Why only now? His hands trembled as he pressed something soft against my chest to stop the bleeding. Desperation etched into every feature. Because I see it clearly, I was wrong. God, I was so wrong. Just hold on. I glanced toward her, still frozen in shock, tears slipping silently down her pale face. She was no longer cruel, no longer smug. She was terrified, haunted by the weight of her lies, realizing too late their devastating consequences. Tell him, I whispered faintly, locking my gaze onto her frightened eyes. Tell him the truth now. Let it end. She opened her mouth, the words stumbling out clumsily through sobs. It was me.
Elite.
None of it was true. I made it all up. I was jealous, I just wanted you to myself. I never meant it to go this far. His face twisted in anguish and fury, realization slamming into him like a physical blow. Why? He choked out, disbelief and anger tangled painfully together. Why would you do something like this? Her eyes dropped to the ground, shoulders shaking with guilt and shame. Because I wanted what she had. The way you loved her, it was so strong. I hated seeing it. I couldn't stand not being chosen. He looked back down at me, eyes brimming with regret, remorse heavy in every feature. Please forgive me. I never should have believed her. You didn't deserve any of this. My breathing was shallow, a quiet numbness spreading gently through my limbs, but somehow through the fog I found clarity. My words came slowly, carefully, each one weighted with quiet intensity. Forgiveness isn't enough. You needed to see my pain to understand. Why couldn't you believe me without proof? He shook his head, desperate, tears spilling unchecked down his face. I don't know. Fear, insecurity, I let doubt poison everything. It blinded me. I closed my eyes briefly, gathering strength, feeling consciousness slip further away, but determined to say what mattered most. You chose doubt over trust. Every single time. And every time it destroyed another piece of me. Can you see that now? He nodded fiercely, voice shaking, sincerity bleeding through every broken word. I see it. I see it now, clearer than ever. Remember this. I breathed weakly, my vision dimming. Remember how easily lies can destroy the one you claim to love. I will. He whispered desperately, gripping my hand tightly, his warmth a distant comfort as darkness crept closer. Just hold on, please. I barely heard him now, my heartbeat slow and heavy in my ears, the pain fading into something distant and muted. But even as I drifted, there was quiet relief in knowing my message had been received at last. My pain had finally become undeniable. The truth exposed in blood, in tears, in irreversible regret. In the darkness enveloping me, one thought persisted, a whisper of hard-earned peace. Finally, they both understood exactly what their lies and accusations had cost. And no matter what came next, they could never unsee this moment of truth. Time slowed, reality fracturing into broken snapshots. Each second stretched into eternity. I drifted in and out of awareness, glimpsing fragmented scenes through heavy eyelids. Everything around me felt distant, almost dreamlike, as though I watched from outside myself, an observer detached from the chaos I'd created. Paramedics rushed around me, their urgent voices muffled by the roaring in my ears. Their movements were swift, professional, but my eyes kept drifting past them, searching, finding their faces again. The faces of the people whose cruelty had led us here. He stood frozen to the side, helpless, face pale as chalk, eyes wide with sheer panic. I'd never seen him look this way, not even close. The mask of cold indifference he'd worn for so long was gone, shattered by raw, undisguised fear. He stared at the blood-stained floor, his hands trembling violently, mouth opening and closing without sound, completely unable to process the horror he'd witnessed. Beside him, she sobbed openly, no longer composed or smug. Her once confident posture now crumbled into frightened helplessness. She pressed her shaking hands to her mouth, trying futilely to muffle her cries. The arrogance, the jealousy, the cruel, careless lies. All of it had vanished, leaving only a woman overwhelmed by the gravity of what she'd done. One paramedic leaned close, speaking urgently, but their words didn't register clearly. Instead, I watched his face, The way his eyes darted from my still form to the flashing lights outside. Terror mingled with guilt, realization dawning that this nightmare was real and he had helped cause it. "Will she be okay?" he finally choked out, voice strained with panic, desperation echoing in every syllable. The paramedic glanced briefly at him, eyes sharp, clinical. "We're doing everything we can. Stay back, please." The clarity of that moment burned deeply, because it was the first time he'd shown genuine concern for my well-being, the first time fear for me overrode his endless suspicion. She tried stepping closer, frantic now, voice trembling wildly. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen." Another paramedic moved firmly between us, voice sharp. "You need to move away, give us space." She stumbled back, face ashen, shaking uncontrollably, tears streaming openly, her quiet whispering barely audible. "This can't be happening. I never meant. I didn't think she'd." But her remorse was too late, useless now, and I saw clearly how her lies had finally turned back upon her, overwhelming her in waves of irreversible guilt. Pain surged suddenly, intense and raw, dragging my focus back inward. My body trembled involuntarily, senses overwhelmed, voices distant again. But even through the haze, I felt strangely peaceful, vindicated, because for once, their eyes reflected my pain. For once, they bore the emotional weight they had always denied me. A paramedic pressed gently on my chest, urgently reassuring. "Stay with us. We're taking you to the hospital now. Stay awake, okay?" I tried to respond, but words wouldn't come. Breath shallow, consciousness slipping again. Still, my gaze stayed locked onto them, refusing to look away, absorbing their terror, their helplessness, their undeniable recognition of what their cruelty had truly done. Because it wasn't just about proving innocence. It was about finally forcing them to face the depth of damage they'd inflicted, damage they'd dismissed for so long. As they moved me toward the waiting ambulance, I glimpsed his eyes one last time. They were red-rimmed, haunted by guilt and despair. In that look was the first real remorse I'd ever seen from him, the stark realization that his accusations had cut deeper than any knife ever could. I wanted to say something, offer forgiveness, offer release, but strength was gone, words failing as darkness claimed me again. Yet, as I drifted, one clear truth remained etched in my heart. Their terrified faces would never be erased, never forgotten. The cost of their lies had finally caught up, written vividly in fear and regret, permanently etched into their souls. And for the first time they saw me clearly, broken, wounded, but undeniably innocent, undeniably human. They'd spent so long ignoring my voice, but my silence spoke louder now than words ever could. The hospital room was quiet, filled with the steady beeping of monitors and soft hum of medical equipment. Light filtered through closed blinds, muted, gentle, as though the world outside was hesitant to intrude upon my recovery. My chest ached with a deep, persistent pain, a tangible reminder of the moment when everything changed, a scar I would carry forever, both inside and out. Slowly, my eyes fluttered open, adjusting gradually to the sterile brightness. Everything felt different now, calmer, clearer, as though a heavy fog had finally lifted. I took a careful breath, aware of the dull throb, grateful for the simple proof of being alive. Beside me, my mother sat quietly, her eyes red from days spent in worry. When she saw me awake, relief and sorrow washed across her features simultaneously. "Sweetheart," she whispered gently, reaching out to carefully squeeze my hand. "You're safe now. You're here." Her touch brought a quiet comfort, yet also a sharp ache. "Do they know now?" I asked softly, voice barely more than a whisper. She nodded slowly, sadness heavy in her eyes. "Everyone knows." She admitted it publicly, told everyone how she lied, how she manipulated him. I closed my eyes briefly, absorbing the weight of those words. "And him?" I asked carefully, heart aching in a new way, afraid of the answer yet needing to hear it. My mother hesitated slightly, choosing her words carefully. "He's devastated. He came here begging for forgiveness, crying, desperate. They didn't let him in. Part of me wanted to see him, to witness his regret firsthand, to make certain he truly understood the depth of his betrayal. But another part, a stronger, quieter part, understood that I'd already made my point clearer than words ever could. It's too late for his regret," I said softly, more to myself than to her. He had endless chances to believe me. My mother squeezed my hand gently again, voice full of quiet strength. Yes, he did. And he chose not to, again and again. That's his burden now, not yours. Her words resonated deeply, allowing a tentative peace to settle within me. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was freedom, a step toward reclaiming myself, toward moving beyond the cruelty I'd endured. Days passed slowly, marked by gradual healing. Visitors came, family, friends, people who'd turned their backs before, all carrying guilt in their eyes, whispering quiet apologies. Each one brought regret, and though their remorse was genuine, it was hard to reconcile their newfound concern with the silence they'd maintained for so long. Finally, one morning he appeared at the doorway. He lingered nervously, eyes shadowed, burdened with guilt he could never erase. The hospital staff watched warily, but I nodded gently, allowing him to approach. He walked slowly, trembling slightly, eyes locked on mine as though terrified I'd vanish again. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, voice raw and broken, tears pooling quickly in his eyes. "I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know that. But I need you to hear how sorry I am for what I did." I studied him quietly, feeling strangely calm despite the turmoil he represented. "Do you finally understand now?" I asked softly. "Do you truly see how much your accusations destroyed me?" He nodded desperately, remorse heavy in every word. "I see it now. It haunts me every second. I'll never forgive myself for what I put you through." A long silence settled between us. I searched my heart, looking for anger or bitterness, but instead found quiet acceptance, strength rooted in clarity. "You believed everyone but me," I said calmly, firmly. "Your trust was the one thing I needed, and you gave it away to someone who lied. You chose to doubt me at every opportunity. That's something you'll have to live with." He nodded slowly, defeated, accepting the truth of my words. "I will live with it every day. I promise you." I met his gaze one final time, releasing him from the weight he'd placed upon me for so long. "Then go and do better," I said gently. "Believe the next person who trusts you with their heart. Don't let them suffer the way I did." He stood silently for a moment longer, absorbing my words, then turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing softly down the hall, a sound I knew I'd never hear again. In the days and weeks that followed, I slowly pieced my life back together, stronger, wiser, more resilient. I no longer hid my scars. They became symbols of my survival, proof that even at my lowest, I had found the strength to make my truth known. I became living proof of resilience, a quiet testimony to anyone who had been silenced, doubted, falsely accused. My voice, once ignored and disregarded, resonated clearly now, stronger than ever, guiding others who faced similar darkness, encouraging them to believe in their own truths. And every morning as sunlight filled my room, warming my healing heart, I reminded myself of one undeniable truth. My story wasn't about the pain they caused me. It was about the strength I found within it. In surviving, I reclaimed the voice they tried so desperately to silence, becoming proof that truth, no matter how deeply buried, eventually rises, undeniable, powerful, alive.